It is November 2nd. There is a lot of wind outside, so if you hear that, I apologize, but it's time to do my October wrap-up. So let's get into it. I've read 10 books this month, and if you're new to my wrap-ups, I tend to arbitrarily make categories to talk about my books in. I will have timestamps for all of them in the description. And what I realized when making my categories for this month is I read a boatload of fantasy, which is not abnormal for me. It actually tends to happen come fall that I forget about picking up other genres and I just am like, I want to read all the fantasy and finish all the series. This happens every year. But yeah, let's just get into it. The first category I'm going to talk about are rereads and hopefully give you some insight if you should pick these up or not. But both my rereads were for the Stormlight Archives, so Edgedancer and Oathbringer. Edgedancer is a book between Words of Radiance and Rhythm of War, so it's like 2.5. If you don't know, the Stormlight Archives is just an epic, massive fantasy series that you should read if you like concise, direct writing, extensive world building, and awesome characters. But if you like, I don't know, more flowery prose, you're not going to get that here. If you don't like 4 prologues at the start of your book, it's a very, very long book series, and that's because of the world building. But getting that out of the way, Edgedancer is the 300-page novella between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, and it's about a character, Lift, who is in the interludes, who we've been told will play a bigger role later on in the series. And she's not my favorite, but she's not my least favorite. I can take her, leave her. She's a cool Order of Radiant, and she has a cool spren. And you do get a cool outlook into the world. So if you've been reading this series, I don't think you can skip it. I do think you need to pick it up because I'm assuming that if you're reading the Stormlight Archives, you are there for the excessive world building. Because if you're not, it's, I don't know why you're reading it. That must be a lot of work to read because there's so much like world building in all of the pages. On the first read, I think I gave it 4 stars, and on this reread, it's still a 4-star read. I just think it's a little long. I wish it was like 100 pages shorter, like an actual novella. And then I reread Oathbringer, and it was this huge surprise. On my first read, I gave Oathbringer 4 stars, which is still really good, but I, on average, give almost every Sanderson a 5 stars, so it was definitely one of my least favorite Cosmere books. And then on this reread, it became a 5-star read. And I think part of that is that this book, it really makes it organic. You are like the characters. You don't know where to go next. You don't know what there is to do next to help resolve the conflict that's happening. And so although that's organic and interesting, you spend a lot of time on character development, world building, and just not knowing where you're going on a first read, which it's 1,300 pages. That's a long time to spend not knowing where you're going. And I think that was really draining on me on my first read. But on a reread, I knew like the general main points. I knew what would happen about in each part. And it was so much more fun. So on a reread, it became 5 stars. Like, I think I might like it more than Way of Kings now. I think it might go Words of Radiance, Oathbringer, Way of Kings in terms of how much I love the novels in the Stormlight. I love them all. But if you'd asked me like a month ago, that would not have been the order. So those are my rereads. I love the Cosmere and the Stormlight Archives. But like I said, don't pick it up if you don't want excessive, indulgent world building. Like, that's just really there. And obviously, if you've read Sanderson before and have not meshed well with his writing style, I don't think that dramatically changes. I mean, they say that this series is one of his best, like it's better than like the Mistborn trilogy. That's what people tell me, but in my experience, it's just not that different. If you don't like the way he writes, you won't like this series either. It's not gonna like change dramatically. Now let's get into the adult fantasy I read this month. And so we'll just start with the first one I finished probably on like October 2nd, and that's The Empire of Gold, the 3rd book in the Davabad trilogy. I loved this ending. When it's the 3rd book of a trilogy, it has to stick the landing, and I'm here to tell you that if you haven't picked up the Davabad trilogy yet, it sticks the landing. It's very much worth consuming. It's amazing. This is a story about Nari, Dara, and Ali. These are 3 characters in this Middle Eastern-inspired fantasy world. Nari is basically a con woman in Cairo, and she accidentally summons Dara, who is an ancient warrior from the past, and he takes her to Davabad because she has some jinn blood. And there she meets Ali, who is the prince of that empire, and politics and character relationships and magic. It's really awesome, and I really loved the third book. I thought its pacing was great. I really loved the stakes. I really liked the ending. Personally, also, a lot of people have opinions about the romance in this series. I never saw it as like something that took a front seat in the series. I found the character relationships very important, but not necessarily the romance. And that's still the case here. And I really thought that how those relationships evolved and progressed in the third book was really well earned. So that is to say, wonderful ending to a trilogy I already loved. If you want cool desert fantasy, you need to pick that series up. And then for the Sisterhood of the Traveling Books Club, I read An Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. This is a first in a duology, but used to be considered a standalone fantasy, and I think it still works really well as a standalone fantasy if that's something you're always looking for. And this one, I gave 3 stars, not because it was bad. It's actually a very gripping, fast-paced read. It's just, when I read fantasy, I'm reading it for engagement, characters, and world building, and it really let me down on the character development and the world building. I thought the world was really cool, but I wanted a bit more. And then couple that with like too many like surface level characters. And then there were like plot moments that I thought were like super cool and important, but they took like this much page time. So all that together made it a 3-star read. If I were to rank it in the scope of my 3-star reads, it's an upper 3-star. It's like almost a 4. It's like trying, but I couldn't quite give it a 4-star, but it's like the perfect read if you like have a plane ride, or if you're like, no, you're gonna be waiting around and you need something to engross you. I thought its pacing was phenomenal for that. I think it's like just a really fun vacation read personally. Like this is what I would have picked it up for. And so the premise of this is, every so often, it's unclear why, there's going to be this tournament for the houses of these wizards in New York, and they have to compete for who's going to be in charge next. The exact rules of this tournament are unclear to me even after finishing this book, but we follow some characters who are in this tournament to see who's going to win, and that's really all you need to know. It pretty much is going to hook you premise-wise from the beginning, and it does have a pretty interesting magic system. And yeah, I talked about this more for the book club, so if you want spoilerly thoughts, I will leave that down below. But a fun read, but I don't think it's going to be particularly memorable 6 months from now. And then I started a bunch of series. I started the Greenbone Saga. So this is Jade City. So good. If you watch my vlogs, I read like 70 pages of this and then proceeded to buy this and J Ward because it was so good. This book is so amazing if you like world building, if you like gripping characters, it's great. Now, the plot might be a bit where you might be hit or miss with it. It's not very fast or action-packed. It's very political drama in a more like mafia-styled like way. So we're on this island and Jade is this material, specifically the jade from this island, that can enhance powers, so give you more strength or make you more resilient to getting hit, make you faster, etc. There are people who are indigenous to this island who actually have no response, and then you have people who are overly sensitive. So it can be like this magic system can be kind of almost like a drug, where some people have the appropriate sensitivity and some people are overly sensitive and they will go mad. And there's families who control the distribution of jade, so that's where you get this whole like mafia, Godfather-esque like plot. And we're primarily going through point of views of the siblings in this family. So you get really invested in these characters. It's a very one-sided story. You're only seeing it from this like one mafia head for this book. So it's not like you're getting the common man's perspective of the situation. And like a lot of mafia and urban stories, it's a little bit gory, it's a little bit harsh. So if you don't want that in your fantasy, then it probably won't mesh well with you. But Fonda Lee wrote a character that I don't like, but I'm invested with and I understand how he thinks. Like the character work is so good. I'm so excited to read Jade War. If you saw my TBR earlier this week, it is on the docket. It's a really good read. I'm so excited to read more by Fonda Lee. It was really well done. Even after finishing it, the one spot that I thought was like slow pacing, I'm like, but that had to be there. Like, I have very few complaints about this work, and I hear Jade War is even better. And the next series I started was, I think it's Between Earth and Sky by Rebecca Roanhorse, and this is Black Sun. So Black Sun I have conflicting thoughts on. I'm going to make a review for this, and that will be up probably either this weekend or next weekend. But this is a book by an author whose writing I love. And I buddy read this with Tori, and we both really loved the first like 75%. And then we both were very conflicted on the ending. That was both of our experience, because you spend the first 60-75% very meandering. It's a very calm progression. You kind of have this countdown plot. You in this world, it's pre-Columbian based fantasy in Americas, so no real European influence on the Americas. So a lot of this is going to be based off indigenous cultures in both North and South America. And so that premise is what sold me. I didn't even look at anything else. I just knew it was high fantasy based on the culture of the Americas before colonization. I was sold. And in that it excels. The world building was wonderful for me. I love the little tidbits you get at the beginning of each chapters. I love that this takes place in different regions of the world. I really loved the world building. I really love the characters. I just wanted more of some characters. I wanted this book to be longer. Does that make sense? Like if we were going to meander, I wanted it to meander longer because the ending felt like a rush to the finish line, and I didn't feel like I enjoyed that rush. Definitely is a first book in a series. It doesn't feel cathartic in terms of it being like a complete thought on its own like it is. It's not really a cliffhanger, but I know that my opinion on this book will be more solidified when I've read other books in the series, which is never like a great thing to say about a first book. I still loved the writing. I loved the world building. I loved the characters. I just didn't love like the ending, which I don't know why. That's just like, it's something I can't look past. You know, I'm a very much you have to stick the ending kind of girl. So I don't actually know what rating you're gonna see on the screen. I'm still thinking about it. It's either a very high 3 or it's a low 4. I did have such a good time reading this. Like if you saw my vlogs, I had a really fun time. It was just that ending. Just the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, I just wanted more, which isn't a bad thing. And we're gonna get more. It's the first in a series. Now I'm gonna talk about the 2 YA fantasies I read, because I did read 2 young adults this month. The first I'll talk about is Incendiary. This is the start of some series. Can't remember the name right now, but this is based off the Spanish Inquisition, and you have, let me see how to describe this. Well, you have the Moria, and these are kind of people who have magic. There's 4 types, and they can be enhanced by metals, and they are currently in the state of not rebellion, but they're kind of like the rebels in Star Wars, where there's an empire who's trying to like eradicate them from the world. And so we follow some of the characters in the Moria, and one of them, Ren, is not trusted by her peers because of stuff she did in the past, and she has this really cool power of acquiring memories, and once she acquires memories, they are gone. You don't have them anymore. So it's a really interesting gift that she has, and you're basically just following this group of people, and it kind of splits itself into 3 acts really well, and I really love Act 1 and Act 3, but the middle kind of lulled for me. But what I will say is that this is a tropey young adult book, and for me it was tropey in the perfect ways. It had the things I wanted from this type of young adult book, but added to that some pretty rich world building. I thought the world building and the themes were really rich. Add to that some tropes that I just adore. It was really fun, and I'm so excited for the sequel. Like, I think I could love the sequel if it does what I want it to do with character dynamics. So yeah, I don't know if I'll do a review for this, but we are reading this for the Space Sirens Book Club, and I do know we're going to talk about it this weekend, actually. So when you're seeing this, we're talking about it. I don't remember if it's Saturday or Sunday. I'll have the link in the time down below. So if you want to hear our spoilery thoughts, you can come see it then. And the next one I just finished yesterday, Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I love this book. This is a book about Yadriel, who wants to prove to his family he's a true brujo. What that means is in this community, male people have the brujo powers, which is summoning spirits and sending them into the afterlife, and female brujas, they are healers. And Yadriel is trans, so Yadriel knows that he's a man, but his family doesn't really believe that's how the magic will work, so he's trying to prove it. In the process, summons Julian. And banter ensues, and my heartstrings get pulled, and it was really fun. It was perfect for Dia de Muerto. Like, I finished this on November 1st, and it was perfect. So it had really great vibes for the season. I thought the writing was really fun. I had a great time. It was exactly what I was looking for, which was good character interaction and banter. And for me, it just was great. You've seen me gush about it in my vlog from this week. I had a good time. I also read two, I'll call them contemporaries. I'll first talk about Once Upon an Eid. This is a middle grade short story collection about different tellings of the holiday Eid. And it's wonderful. I'm rating it 5 stars. It's a perfect short story collection for what it is and what I gained from it. It exceeded my hopes. My heart was always so full. Sometimes I related so hard to some of these stories that I was just not expecting the impact this collection had on me. I'm still thinking about purchasing it. That's how much I had a great time with this collection. There are 15 stories, and you will find a story in here that you resonate with. It does not matter if you are religious or not, if you are Muslim or not. These are about children trying to navigate traditions in their family while also figuring out themselves as individuals. That is the human experience. Like, this was so heartwarming. I loved it. I had feelings. It was great. And the last one I'll talk about, I read for my book club, and this is my local book club here in Boston, and that was The Dutch House. Now, I listened to the audiobook because it's narrated by Tom Hanks. So I don't know how I couldn't have had at least a 4-star experience. So that's what it got. It was phenomenal. He is a great narrator for audiobooks. And gosh, what is this story about? It's very character driven. You have Danny and his sister Maeve. They grew up in this really fancy house in Pennsylvania called the Dutch House. And there's an evil stepmother, and their father dies, and just life happens. And it's a very non-linear story about their life together, about them going to school, getting married, having kids, dealing with illness and loss. And it's this weird non-linear story that was completely engrossing to me. I could not put it down. It made no sense, but I really loved it. It was a really fun time. I do think your experience with it depends on how close you feel to Danny, who I felt was more of a narrator than a character because it is in first person. It felt more like Maeve's story to me, and I really liked Maeve. Maeve was pretty great. So yeah, these were the 10 books I read this month. I was really happy about all of them. I mean, even the one I gave 3 stars, I had a great time with. So yeah, I would recommend all of these if any of them piqued your interest, and let me know the best read you read this month down in the comments below, or the most disappointing. I'll hear either or. And other than that, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.